Okay, so I wanted to make a video dedicated to all of you who deal with chronic pain, fatigue, illness. I have suffered from fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, heavy metal toxicity, hypothyroidism, whatever you want to call it. A lot of people don't like the term fibromyalgia because it is basically when they've just given up and say, we don't know what's wrong with you, fibromyalgia. But whatever you want to call it, I'd like to just kind of describe my experiences. I started being very sick even as a teenager. I slept through most of my classes. I was completely fatigued at all times. I didn't know why. Somehow I just barely skated through high school. In my early 20s, actually even before my early 20s, when I was 19, I moved to Tallahassee to try to be in a band with some friends. Music was my savior, the only thing that I truly loved. And so I went to pursue that dream even in my sickly state. Again, most people in their 20s, think about it, you're probably playing sports, you're learning so much about the world and yourself, you're falling in love, you're getting laid, you're partying, you're making friendships that last a lifetime. My experience was much the opposite. Being as sick as I was, I wasn't, I was cursed, I was basically cursed. Into my 20s, I continued to get worse until I couldn't even get out of bed. Again, to the cynics, they'll say, oh, you're just depressed. You're just depressed. Just man up. Just go to work, do what you got to do. And not to downplay people who deal with depression. Of course I was depressed, being sick for years. But what I'm talking about goes beyond that. Even if I meditated for an hour and got my mind into the most positive state possible, I was literally so sick that my legs would give out from underneath me if I tried to get out of my bed. I'd have to crawl on the floor like a fucking animal. That is the level of fatigue and sickness I'm trying to describe. I would wake up with pain in my temples so severe it felt like someone had just rammed a spike through my head every morning without fail. Imagine you have the worst flu of your life, and that's every day of your life. And that is pretty much what I've gone through. It was pretty much impossible to keep a job. I would take jobs like telemarketing jobs where I could just show up when I wanted, and I'd only be able to work 1 or 2 days a week. And I ended up being, kicked out of places and being jobless, homeless, carless, penniless, and all at the same time. So again, my 20s was a horrible time. It was the worst time, and it was when I was the most sick. Again, when most people are at their best, the prime of their life. Even most people who deal with fibromyalgia get it much later in life. So it was a difficult road. I eventually had to move back home and started the hard work on the path to wellness. Which was very slow, but I did discover things that helped me tremendously. Even actually within the first few months of when I moved back home. When you deal with these type of illnesses, people don't understand that, if you could make plans for something 6 months in advance, and then people will be like, why didn't you show up? like, you knew about this. They don't understand until it's the day of. You never know how you're going to feel. And if you're having an extremely bad day where you literally can't get out of bed, there's no way you're going to that event. So imagine that in relationships. Imagine, I've had to let go of so many relationships because I was just too sick to be a good boyfriend. If your girlfriend's best friend is getting married and you can't go to the wedding because you can't get out of bed, and how are you able to get married if you don't know how sick you're going to be that day? It's a very dire situation. It's something that's hard to laugh about. And people wonder why those of us who suffer from chronic illness don't always seem to have the best sense of humor. Because the sickness basically overtakes your personality. It's more about the sickness than it is you, because you also deal with brain fog, where your mind is fatigued and clouded. And I mean, again, at my worst, I wasn't even able to speak with people. I wasn't even able to form sentences. I can't describe my life at that time. I can only try. I was basically like a ghost living between this world and the next, between life and death at all times. Another thing that strikes me when I see people talk about fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue as invisible illnesses, that hasn't been my experience at all. On a good day, I think I'm a pretty good-looking dude. On a bad day, I look like The Walking Dead. I look like a freaking zombie, like a ghost. In my early 20s, I most often got compared to Edward Scissorhands, which isn't a bad thing, but I had that wild, crazy hair. I was the skinniest kid you've ever seen, and I looked sickly. My skin was like a grayish, greenish, white color. I looked like the undead. And people either just looked right through me, or they were a little bit scared of me, which was fine because I wasn't trying to bring anyone in. I would push people away. Again, even later in life, I have had to break up many relationships and friendships because I wasn't healthy enough to maintain them. And it wasn't fair to them or to me. So, everyone wants the silver lining. Everyone wants the happy ending. And I would love to give that to you. And I'd love to just put a beautiful ribbon and bow on this story and wrap it up. Unfortunately, life's not always fair. What I can tell you is I'm healthier now than I've ever been. I still have bad days, though. I wish I could say I found the perfect blend of supplements and they are going to make you into superhuman. And I'm selling them now for the low cost of $99.99 per month. Join our program today. And supplements have been amazing. I take probably, people who know me know I take like an arsenal of supplements every day. I take probably 20 supplements. And there's many other things I do to maintain my health and improve my health. Meditation's great. Self-hypnosis is great. And I will try to cover some of these topics in future videos. But for now, for those of you who deal with this illness, know there is some hope and some light at the end of the tunnel. Again, I still have bad days, but I have more good days than bad now. And, the thing about this is you develop gratitude. You develop so much gratitude if you can even get out of bed in the morning, if you can even get through your day successfully. and not deal with the most intense brain fog imaginable and the most intense pain imaginable. You develop so much gratitude just for these things that everyone else takes for granted. If you're dealing with a friend or, God forbid, a lover, a husband, a wife who has fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue or, heavy metal poisoning, which many believe, as I do, is one of the main causes for all these illnesses. I had my amalgam fillings taken out years ago, and I was still tested with mercury levels that were 10 times higher than normal. So I was poisoned. It's toxic. It's toxic waste. And thankfully, most dentists are now turning away from that methodology. And I'll talk more about that in the future as well. But again, if you have a friend or a husband or wife who's dealing with this pain, with this illness, with this fatigue, try to be understanding, try to be loving. Again, most of my girlfriends have been very understanding. I've had to end almost all the relationships. My last relationship, she was young, she's super healthy, she's an outdoorsy type of girl, always going camping, boating, fishing. And I definitely think that my illness had something to do with that relationship ending recently. But in general, most of my girlfriends have been really understanding. And I know as I go forward that I'm going to continue to get healthier. I think of myself as kind of a Benjamin Button, where I'm aging in reverse and also getting healthier year by year. With the advancements in biogenetics and gene editing, I want to eventually craft myself into a triathlete. Why not? But in the meantime, for all of you, I wish you nothing but love and light and health and wealth and happiness. And thank you for watching.